Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Dustin Kreis, and today we're going to do a game discussion, and we're going to talk about this game right here, Earthbound, on the Super Nintendo and also on the Wii U. I've had this game for most of my life. This came out in, there's two dates, 94, 95. I think it came out in the States in 95. So I'd have been 13 years old when this game came out. It's been 20 years. I've had this game cartridge for 20 years. That's more than half of my life. That's kind of insane. And I've already beat this game 3 times, and this current playthrough will be my 4th beating Earthbound. And there's been a lot of talk about this game. It's really big out there in the collecting market. Even though it's not really rare, it commands a high price because it commands a high price for a reason. And that reason is this game is flat out a masterpiece. People talk about Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Phantasy Star games, all of these great 16-bit era RPGs. But when you really boil this game down, it is an out-and-out masterpiece. Everything from the refinements to the combat, taking that Dragon Quest style of RPG combat, incorporating a few cool little things to it to make it, more interactive. The environments, the zaniness, the goofiness, the sometimes downright creepiness of the game. Several different versions of creepy, like actual spine-tingling kind of creepy, and then just like, oh, I can't believe this NPC said that. What a creepy thing for them to say, like kind of perverse creepy, It's a weird game. At the same time, it's a weird game to come from Nintendo, but it's also one of the most Nintendo games out there. Just the cutesy quirkiness, the sort of subversion to the story and everything that's going on in this world. The game is just an out-and-out masterpiece. And so much so that I really don't think this video will do it justice. And it was within the first, few minutes of throwing this game in after beating Earthbound Beginnings. And you just see the refinement in the graphics, the storytelling, the combat, the music, just everything. It took everything that they tried to do in Mother 1. And basically what this game feels like is after you play Earthbound Beginnings and go into this game, it feels like Mother 1 was sort of the low-budget 80s movie, all right? It's got a lot of charm to it, but at the same time, it doesn't really do everything that, the big Hollywood budget movies would want to do. And then you get to Earthbound, and it's like the full force, awesome remake. And I'm actually looking at my movie wall now, and I can't really think of a remake, like a movie that came out and then they remade it and it was just infinitely better than the original. But this is a example of sort of rebooting, remastering, if you will, conventions from the original game and making a much, much, much better game. Earthbound above Earthbound Beginnings, it's not even a leap. It's like take a space shuttle and fly yourself into outer space. It's that big of a jump in quality from Earthbound Beginnings. So anyway, what can be said about this game that hasn't been said multiple times? In terms of the rarity, does this game warrant the price for this cartridge? Absolutely not, especially when you can buy a Wii U and download this game on the Wii U for cheaper than you can buy this cartridge. You gotta think about that. That's a pretty ridiculous thing. You're basically, if you're just gonna buy Earthbound, go buy a Wii U, download the game, and then, basically, you got a system for free. We can sit here and argue about the Wii U all you want, but, you get a system for free if you do it that way. However, if you want to purchase the cartridge, it's one of those few games out there that I say the high price of it is kind of an okay thing, because it means, like, this is my personal cartridge from when I was a kid, and I had the box, and when my parents moved, I threw the box away foolishly. I kick myself every day for that. But yeah, this is my personal cartridge, so this will never leave. This is where I cut my teeth on Earthbound, so it means a lot to me. You know, and if you put that investment into it, and that money into it, it's going to mean a lot to you too. So that kind of offsets, you know, the price, and instead of having just a digital only version of the game. But man, where to begin with this? Without getting any big spoilers, the story kind of follows the same RPG tropes that we have come very familiar with. You know, the courageous young hero that sets out to save the world from this impending doom, you know. The female character who it kind of insinuates there's a relationship between, but she's very powerful in magic. You know, it takes all these conventions that we're used to in RPGs and just subverts them a little bit. In some ways, a lot. And it does a lot of breaking of the fourth wall, and NPC characters just saying really crazy, skewed things. Most of the fun, like a lot of games, I will skip talking to NPCs because they just say very banal things, and I just don't care. Earthbound, whenever I get to a new town, one of the funnest things to do is go around and talk to all these people, because you just won't believe like half the insane shit these people say. You know, it's just totally bizarre, and it's pretty crazy that Nintendo, one, made this game, period, and two, brought this game out over to North America, as unedited as it is. Because if you look into it, there were a lot of edits to bring this game over to the North American continent, or the Western world in general. I don't know where. I don't think Europe got this. I don't know about South America. Central and South America. I know United States, North America, and Canada got it, but I don't know about anywhere else, so I can't really talk about that. But it's crazy with Nintendo's, Nintendo's censorship policies back in the day, and I would love to sit here and give you examples, but if you have not played this game, I really don't want to spoil everything that this game does. Like, the storyline is just, it's good for a 16-bit era storyline. It's no Final Fantasy III, it's no big epic, but what's there and the originality that this game brings in terms of just bizarreness and humor, absolute humor. Like, I even now, 32-year-old me, sitting there playing the game, I was laughing at this game. And so surprisingly, some real moments of darkness. Nothing as dark as what I interpreted in Earthbound Beginnings, where you basically talk a character into suicide. And from what I hear, nothing is dark at what happens in Mother 3. But some real surprising moments in this storyline, and it's a charmer. It's not going to blow you away if you're looking for like the next like Shin Megami Tensei, world destruction storyline. You're not going to get that here. What you're going to get is a story that takes those tropes and twists them and subverts them in kind of cool and interesting ways. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of a satire of an RPG. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about the storyline without like ruining it, other than your four kids setting out to save the world from some impending disaster, and the characters and the situations you run into more than make up for the quote-unquote lack of epicness in the storyline. That's all it is. Anyway, the combat. Now, the combat is something that, for me personally, I find somewhat special, because I love that Dragon Quest, 8-bit, 16-bit era style of turn-based combat. I love the fact that when you get attacked, your health doesn't instantly drop. It slowly ticks down. And if you can cast a healing spell quick enough, you can save a character from dying and not have to use a revive item, which are very rare, and the spell that revives characters is only one character really gets it, and it's he doesn't have much PP to begin with, but PP sounds funny when you say it. Ha 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 ha. Funny, 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 Earthbound. PP is basically the magic points of this game. There's psychic points. And also it makes you sound like a fool whenever you talk about your magic points, because instead of MP, you get to say PP, and you get to laugh like a little kid. Anyway, he doesn't have much, so he can only get about 3 usages of it off. Is that even a word? I don't know. And towards the end of the game, the difficulty ramps up pretty heavily, where you have this one enemy called Ghost of Starman, and those guys are just dickheads. They cast, oh shit, what's it called? I was just using it, God, Starstorm? I can't remember. Somebody's gonna be a dickhead and write, oh, you don't know what the name of the spell was? You're a real fan of the game? Anyway, they use the spell, and it'll just wipe out like 2 members of your party easily. And if you don't get off like a life up Omega in the next round, those people are dead, and you have to revive them. And you run into these guys a lot during the end part of the game, and it's just a pain in the butt. So luckily, on the Wii U version, you have save states, which basically I used to not have to go through all the story segments leading up to... I had a save in Saturn Valley, getting ready to head into the final push, and then after that I just used save states until I got to the final boss, and because I didn't want to go through all that story stuff again and again and again, because the one guy died and I didn't have a healing item to revive him, because I was stupid and loaded up on something else. But anyway, we're getting way off topic here. From the gameplay perspective, what this game does is actually really cool. Instead of having like an overworld map that you explore, you just explore like these individual towns, and they're set up a lot like a town would be. I remember being a kid and going through Onet the first time and just like exploring every nook and cranny of that town. And the music while you're there is just so awesome. It really makes the game enjoyable when there's a real sense of discovery. Because even if you don't find an item, you can just walk up to someone's door and knock on their door, and the character that's inside the house will just spout off the most insane thing you've ever heard at that time. Remember, 16-bit era. Nothing really like this out there. And it really made exploring the world interesting, especially when you look back on the beginnings with Earthbound Beginnings, and how that game was very sparse. There was a lot of open world to explore, but not a real reason to do it. When Earthbound, they kind of compact things, and when I say compact things, I mean the maps aren't as sprawling. There's a lot of things to do within these smaller maps, but there's a lot more of them. There's a lot more places and towns to go and things like that. Earthbound Beginnings is really a big open world game, whereas Earthbound proper kind of has more of a linearity to it in a way, because you kind of go from town to town. You can't really move ahead because the game won't let you until you finish what's going on in the one town. But what that does is makes a really nice sense of progression that's definitely missing from Earthbound Beginnings. Earthbound Beginnings, you just feel like you're lost for most of the game. Whereas Earthbound, you really feel like you know where you're going and what you're supposed to be doing. So much so that when I was a kid, I would use the packed-in strategy guide like all the time when I played the game. But this time when I played it, except for one part where I couldn't remember what I was supposed to do, I didn't use the strategy guide at all, and I got through the game. And the only thing I didn't get was I forgot to get the damn Sword of Kings for Prince Pooh, who I named Steven, or Steve, because you can't put in 5 letters. And I thought that was kind of funny because he was Prince Pooh, and I named him Steven because Steven had a poo problem when he came to my apartment. Behind the scenes jokes. Anyway, now where I'm going with this. I started talking about poo jokes, and I've completely lost track. That's what Earthbound does to you. One of the cool things about Earthbound that I didn't realize at the time how revolutionary it was. But enemies are actually on the map, and you can actually try to run from them, even though they're very fast and they'll always catch you. But depending on how you interact with the enemy, really helps how you deal with the battle. If you sneak up on one, you'll get a green screen, and you start the battle, you know, fully ready to go. The enemy is kind of stunned, and you get to have first strike. If they sneak up on you, the screen goes red, and they get their first strike. Or the screen, you know, if they both mutually know you're there, the screen goes gray, and you just start the battle as it goes. And it's really kind of a fun thing to try to see if you can sneak up on enemies. Because if you can sneak up on enemies, there's a good chance that you can one-shot kill them and not even go into the battle screen. And that is really awesome. That really speeds up having to backtrack through areas you've already been. Because you just walk up to an enemy and it just goes and the enemy's dead. And you get the experience points for free. So it's really an awesome system. I wish more RPGs would incorporate something like that, especially when you have to do the backtracking, because it really makes things a lot easier. And what else? Oh, there's these little magic butterflies that fly around every now and then that replenish your PP. And it's really, sometimes those guys are a friggin' lifesaver. However, it's a good thing that those things are in there, because at the same time, the game sometimes ramps up the difficulty pretty high. There was a few situations. I had an easier time this time with it than I ever remember having with Earthbound. I don't know if the Wii U version, which is what I just played, I don't know if that was like toned down in difficulty, but I remember dying a lot more in Earthbound than I died nowadays. But even then, man, there's just times where it feels like the game is just trying to mess with you. You know, what's a situation? Oh, you're clearly, you had 3 of your party members attack, and you're just waiting for that last party member to hit, and sure enough, they go to strike the enemy and they completely whiff, and then the enemy gets off their really powerful attack and probably kills somebody. And it just seems like that happens very often, so much so that it feels like the game is just trying to troll you. You know, every now and then you'll get lucky and you'll wipe out enemies before they get their attacks in, but a lot of times the game's like, no, look, dude, you're in a battle, I need to attack you, I need to do something to you, so you're gonna miss. And it feels kind of, I don't want to say cheap, but you can almost see it, you can almost feel it coming, like in your teeth, like you get a little vibration in your teeth and you're like, oh, here it goes, and then you completely whiff, and then somebody dies because that one character missed, and it kind of does piss you off. But other than that, I mean, the game is, it's challenging in places, but it's really easy in places too, so I guess the balance is still a little bit off. But gameplay-wise, if you've played a 16-bit RPG, you know what to expect from Earthbound, except you're going to have some fun little quirks that really set the game apart. And it's sad that the series only went through 3 games, because I really think what this series has is something very unique and special, and it's unfortunate that it hasn't really continued on beyond that. Other than that, the music, my god, the music's amazing in this game. Just absolutely stunning. The theme for Onet is like one of my favorite all-time themes in a video game of all time. Yes, I keep my copy of Earthbound in a Ziploc baggie to keep it away from oxygen and what have yous and stuff like that. So it's special to me. It's precious. But the music is flat out amazing, and like some of the tracks are just so out there and so bizarre. Like the Cave to the Past is just completely like insane. When you get to the Dungeon Man dungeon, and for people who've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. I actually had to start folding laundry during that part, and so I just kind of, you know, paused the game and started folding some laundry, and that song was just kind of drilled into my head, and that night, like I felt very weird that night because that song was just, it was just right there, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And if you've been into the Dungeon Man dungeon, I'm not talking about the first time you meet Brick Road. I'm talking about the second time when you actually are in his body. It's spoiler, kind of, maybe not really, because you don't have any idea what I'm talking about unless you played the game. But yeah, just some of the most bizarre music you ever heard. Some very jazzy kind of, danceable tracks, some like electronic tracks, very eclectic. That's the word you want to use for the soundtrack of this game. Very eclectic. But some of those melodies, man, some of those melodies really get stuck in your head. So, when you look at like soundtracks in a video game, it really stands apart as one of those ones that you just kind of, your brain always goes back to some of the songs. Like my brain will always go back to some of the Dragon Warrior songs or some of the Final Fantasy songs. And it always goes back to the Earthbound music. And that's something I don't really say a lot about modern day video games. With a lot of these very symphonic orchestrated scores, the music just kind of fades into the background. But with like these old school like chip tunes and MIDI tunes and things like that, there's a charm to it that sticks with me for some reason. I don't know. Other than that, the graphics are very colorful, cute, charming, but at the same time there's like this weird like twistedness to them, like this slightly I guess I hate to use the same word again, but slightly twisted nature to these characters, where they're just kind of, the entire game is kind of a caricature of American culture seen through the eyes of the Japanese. And it's really an interesting thing to see kind of what they take from American culture and when they look at our society, what they see and how they interpret it, and then how they put it into the game and things like that. It's really kind of an interesting lesson and sort of the way Japanese people view things. And I don't know. All in all, man, if you've been waiting to play Earthbound, Michael Yanacito, get off your ass and do it. This game is 16-bit perfection. And I know that there's this tribe of haters out there that want to just rip everything down on Earthbound. But when you sit back and you really look at the game, it is spot on perfect. And it's really an era of Nintendo that just does not exist anymore. It makes me long for the Super Nintendo game or Super Nintendo days, because it just seemed like creativity was so unbound back in those days. And maybe it's because I was younger and sort of dumber, but it just seemed like the sky was the limit. And now, like, when you look at video game development, you're just kind of, okay, I guess I'll get that game. It doesn't have the excitement of what it did back in the day. And it's weird because I don't think it was because I was a kid, because I look at like retro games, modern day retro games that get announced that have that 16-bit era look. I'm just like, ooh, and then like, something gets announced and it's photorealistic graphics, and I just don't care. So there's really something to be said about that 16-bit era in terms of video games and RPGs and just sheer perfection. Like, there's so many games on the Super Nintendo that are either perfection or so close to perfection that you might as well just lump them in with perfection. And Earthbound is definitely one of those games. It's a masterstroke. It's a magnum opus, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely, it commands that price for a reason. It's that good of a game. Now, if you want to get it on the digital download on the Wii U, or if you want to pirate it on your emulator, whatever, man. Just play it. Just play the game. It is so good. It is so refreshing. And I can't wait to go out there and start Mother 3 on my PSP Go emulator. So, anyway, that is it. I don't know what else to say about Earthbound. I really don't. If you're more interested in Earthbound, there's plenty of videos out there. Everyone talks about Earthbound, and I don't want to drive it into the ground because I don't want to sit here and drill it into your head. and then you get sick of it and not play it. Go play it. You definitely need to play it. If you like the 16-bit era, you need to play Earthbound. That is it. Done. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.